Hello everyone, how are you? So let's begin with the new topic today. The topic, the last time we have completed prospectus, the chapter 2, then we completed the private placement as well. So today we are going to start with the new chapter of the Companies Act 2014, which is very important regarding the share capital and then debentures. So first let's try to understand what is capital. So let me just put the word capital over here. So we will talk today mainly about the share capital, but before we'll proceed further, we need to understand what is exactly mean by capital. Okay, so capital is something which a company is raising from the outsider investors, which may be in the form of share capital or which may be in the form of borrowed capital. So capital has variety of meanings. So it may mean one thing to the economist, another to the accountant, and for some businessman or a lawyer it may have the meaning differently. But the layman's views about the capital, which is a company has raised by issue of its shares. So we can broadly classify capital into two categories. So first category can be the share capital, and second category we can say borrowed capital. Okay, so under borrowed capital, which type of capital will come? Mainly the debentures. Will come. Under share capital, again there can be classification into two. So we can say that there can be equity share capital, there can be preference share capital. We'll talk about that in detail. So it uses basically, okay, when a company issues the share capital, company uses this particular money to meet its requirement by way of acquiring business premises and stock in trades, which are called as fixed capital and which can be circulating capital respectively. So basically, if we talk about the borrowed capital, okay, or the loan, which is used to mean money borrowed by the company and secured by issuing various debentures and other securities. So debenture is one of the very popular form of borrowed capital. So it is not proper use of the word capital for that matter, because companies are required to give some kind of interest over it. So we have studied the memorandum of association, and under memorandum of association we have talked about the capital clause. So under capital clause we have we have seen that the authorized capital of the company is required to be mentioned. Now how the authorized capital is decided? It is as per the requirement of the company. So we are going to talk about that as well, which type of classifications of the capital can be there, okay, to the company in the company form of business. So let's first try to focus on the classification and then we'll move on to the further part. So if I want to highlight the classification, or you can say the nature of capital, nature of share capital. First we will talk about nature of share capital. Nature of share capital. So nature of share capital can be divided into various parts. So first can be the authorized or nominal capital. So one by one we'll try to understand, okay, what does it mean. So what does it mean by authorized or nominal capital? So it is such type of capital as is authorized by the subscribers in the memorandum of the company, which is mentioned in the capital clause. To be, it is the kind of maximum amount of the share capital of the company. Okay, so we can give the definition. Now where the definition is exactly defined, it is defined under defined under section 2 subsection 8 of the act. Okay, so what can we say? Such capital as is authorized by MOA, that is Memorandum of Association, of a company to be a maximum amount of share capital of the company. Okay, so this is the maximum amount up to which a company can raise the capital, and in the capital clause of the company we mention the authorized capital. So let's assume that ABC Private Limited is having a share capital of rupees, authorized share capital of rupees 1 lakh. Now it can be divided into equal denominated shares. So let's assume that company is going to issue 10,000 shares for 1 lakh capital. So it will be equally divided into equal denominated shares of 10 rupees 10 each. So my capital clause of the company will say like this: an authorized share capital of the company is rupees 1 lakh divided into 10,000 equity shares of rupees 10 each. So rupees 10 is the face value of the share. So when a company goes for the incorporation, it has to mention that nominal value or the face value of the share, and that is the reason it is called as authorized or nominal capital. Even one more category, you can say that okay, it is kind of register capital, because you go for the registration and you mention this particular capital over there. So don't forget, it is mentioned under section 2 subsection 8 of the act. So next comes issued capital. Okay, so let's talk about the issued capital now. What is meant by issued capital? Where it is exactly defined? It is defined under section 2 subsection 50. Section 2 subsection 50 of the act. So if I want to mention what is issued capital, such capital as the company issues from time to time. Okay, so let's assume that a company is having the authorized capital of rupees 5 lakh. Now company may not go for the issue of 5 lakh because company is having right now the requirement of, let's assume that 2 lakh rupees of the capital. So company may come up with the issue of 2 lakh right now, and later on when a company as and when require more capital, company will have liberty to issue 3 lakh rupees of the authorized capital which is pending. Now issued capital is what? It is a part of the authorized capital which has been issued by the company, okay, from time to time. So let's say company is going for 2 lakhs, the company has first come up with the issue of rupees 2 lakh. So it is that part of authorized capital which the company issues from time to time, being for public subscription means for the shareholder subscription, and then allotment, and this is computed at the face value of the nominal capital. Okay, so in my given example, I'm going to explain the example with you, so that you will get the better idea how this particular issued capital and how you can differentiate between all these types of capitals. First we will try to understand the theoretical aspects of this particular type of nature of share capital. So we have studied so far two nature of share capital. First one is authorized, then issued capital. Now let's move on to the next category of share capital. So let me put that it is a third one. Subscribe capital. Subscribe capital. So where subscribe capital has been defined, it is defined under section 2 subsection 86 of the Act. It is such part of capital which is for the time being subscribe by the members of the company. It is such type of capital which is subscribed by the members of the company. Okay, so what is subscribed capital? Subscribed capital is a part of the issued capital. So I have given you example that a company has issued a capital of rupees 2 lakhs for a time being, and then the shareholders, the proposed shareholders will subscribe for that particular issued capital. So actual subscription whatever a company has received, it will become my subscribed capital. So it may be oversubscribed or undersubscribed for that matter. So it is that portion of the issued capital at face value which has been subscribed for or taken up by the subscribers of shares in the company. So it is clear that the entire issued capital may or may not be subscribed. So as I told you, it may go for the oversubscription or it may go for the undersubscription. So let's assume that if my 2 lakh shares or 2 lakh rupees of the shares means 20,000 shares a company is issuing, company may receive the subscription for more than that, means more number of shareholders are ready to purchase the shares of the company. So in that case my subscribed capital, it will be called as it is oversubscribed. There can be the reverse situation where the shareholders may not purchase the entire issued capital, may not subscribe to the entire issued capital. In that case it will be called as undersubscribed. So it is oversubscription and undersubscription. So you need to just keep that in mind. Your subscribed capital may or may not be your issued capital may or may not be subscribed totally. Let's move on to the next category of capital, which is called up capital, which is, let me just put on over here, called up capital. What is meant by called up capital? Where it is defined under section 2 subsection 15 of the Act. So it is such part of capital which has been called for payment, okay. So basically it is that part of the subscribed capital which has been called, or rather you can say demanded on the shares, okay, to make the payment by the company. So if subscribers, we are just assuming a case, okay, where a company has come up with the issue of 20,000 shares of rupees 2 lakhs. Subscribers has subscribed, they have subscribed for the 20,000 shares. It is on par, and then company, okay, will call the money on that particular subscribed capital. So it may be, it is like that called up capital is that part of capital which has been called for payment. So my called up capital may become my 2 lakh of rupees in that particular case. Sometimes company may just call for the payment in the application money form. Later on it may call later on, okay, after incorporation of a company as well. So such type of practices are also we can witness in the real world, real corporate world. So let's assume that about let's now talk about the paid up capital, which is very important type of capital, because normally, okay, whatever money company has received, how we can understand, with the help of paid up capital. This is an important concept. So it is such aggregate amount, it is such aggregate amount of money credited as paid up. It is such aggregate amount of money credited as paid up. So it is basically equivalent to the amount received as paid up in respect of the shares issued, and also includes any amount credited as paid up in respect of the shares of the company. But it may not include any other amount received in respect of such shares by whatever name called. So in short, what you need to remember, the paid up capital is that part of the called up capital. If suppose company has called up the capital, and out of that called up capital, actual, okay, the payment has been made certain amount. So let's say company has called up 2 lakh rupees of the capital, and the shareholders has paid 50% amount of it. So my paid up capital will become my 1 lakh rupees. So paid up capital is the important concept one needs to understand very well. So we have studied so far the nature of share capital, starting from authorized capital, or you can say nominal capital for that matter, issued capital, subscribed capital, and called up capital. Let's try to understand these particular capitals with the help of example. So let me give you one example over here. Let's assume that ABC Private Limited, ABC Private Limited is going for the incorporation, okay, going for the incorporation. Now first capital, which one will come? Let's assume that company decides that it will issue authorized capital. So company is coming up, okay, and for the incorporation of authorized capital of rupees 5 lakhs. Not necessarily company will issue, okay, 5 lakh. We will just say that, okay, company's authorized capital is 5 lakh divided into 50,000, okay, equity shares of rupees 10 each, okay. So 50,000 is the capital and rupees 10 each is the, okay, it is a face value of the shares, authorized capital. So 5 lakh rupees. उसके बाद क्या आएगा? We will come to issued capital. So now the company's requirement is not rupees 5 lakh, okay. So company requires now out of this capital, let's assume that 2 lakh. So company may come up with the issue of 2 lakh rupees. So what is the balance remaining? So here you can say balance is now rupees 3 lakhs, which a company may issue, okay, in future. Okay, so company still is still having 3 lakh rupees, okay, which is unissued capital. So this particular balance we can call as unissued capital, okay, which is not a category, it is just for your information. So company is coming up with the 2 lakh, okay, rupees of the issued capital, on which the subscribers will subscribe. So my subscribed capital may be, it may be more than this, it may be less than this, but at no point of time company will issue more than this particular amount. Okay, company will not allow the shareholders to subscribe for the security. So if in case of the oversubscription, there is a formula, according to that, okay, shares can be allotted to the shareholders. Now मान के चलते हैं, in our case, okay, my subscribed capital is rupees 2 lakh only. Whatever company has issued, the shareholders has subscribed to it. So in that particular case, okay, company may call the money from the shareholders. So my called up capital, so company is calling now, okay, 1 lakh rupees you have to pay, you have to pay 50% of it. Okay, so this is nothing but 50% amount company is calling, so this is my 50%. And then my paid up capital will be the actual capital which the companies, okay, which the shareholders has credited in the accounts of the company. Let's assume that entire 1 lakh rupees, which is the 50% shares which have been called up, okay, have been paid properly. So this will become my paid up capital. So see the difference. Authorized capital is the uppermost capital which is on the paper, not required to be issued or paid up. It is just the kind of provision a company while going for the incorporation can do, or from time to time whenever a company will require the more funding, company may go for the alteration of memorandum and can increase the authorized capital. Accordingly, the companies will have to ensure that at no point of time is authorized, the issued capital will be more than the authorized capital. So now a company is going for 2 lakh, okay, rupees of the shares issued capital, and if company wants to go further for more 5 lakh rupees, company cannot go, because in that case the issue capital of the company will become 7 lakh rupees, but my authorized capital is not permitting. So company will have to first alter the memorandum of association, and then only company can issue it further. Subscribed capital, it's a part of issued capital. Again, I'm revising for your for your understanding, which has been actually subscribed by the shareholders. Called up, which has been called for the payment, and paid up, which has already been paid by the shareholders, and which has been credited in the accounts of the company. I hope these examples are you have understood very well about this particular, what is mean by issued, authorized, subscribed, and called up, paid up capital. So please make a note of all these things so that you will not forget. So we have not started with the equity or the preferentials, but we are going to start it. First we need to understand the nature of share capital. Just make a note of this. subscribe capital, called up capital, then paid up capital. The example which I have given to you, now let's begin with our core topic, that is share capital. Don't get confused, we have discussed about the nature of share capital. Now exactly what is meant by share, and then further what are the categories or the types, main categories of the share capital, we will discuss one by one. Share capital. So first let's try to understand the very important definition, that is share, which is given under section 2, which is given under section 2 subsection 84 of the act. Okay, what do you understand by this word share? Share means a share in the share capital of the company and includes stock. Okay, share is different from stock. How it is, we'll talk little later. Okay, so share means a share in the share capital of the company. So we need to break this definition and we need to understand what is the exact nature of the share. So if we need to put the pointers, okay, how we can define, okay, this particular type of the share. So we can say that nature of share. So we can have the different pointers over here. So basically what is share? Share is a kind of right of a specified amount of the share capital of a company. So it carries with it certain rights and liabilities while the company is going concern and when the company is going for the winding up. Okay, so we can say what is the nature of the share. So share is a right to a specified amount of the share capital of a company. Okay, so we can say that it carries certain rights and liabilities. It carries which types of liabilities we'll talk. It carries certain rights and liabilities. So when a company is going concern or when a company is going for winding up, there are certain rights and liabilities attached to the shares. Okay, we'll talk about that, don't worry. First we need to understand the nature of the share very well, okay, without which we cannot proceed further. A share is a right to participate in the profits made by a company. Profits made by company while it is a going concern. Try to understand. So when a company is a going concern, it is a kind of right to participate in the profits. A share is a movable property. Share is a movable property, transferable in a manner provided by AOA of the company. Then a share is regarded as goods. Share is considered as goods as per definition of goods given under Sale of Goods Act 1930. Sale of Goods Act 1930. Every share shall be distinguished by its distinctive number. By its distinctive number. Okay. So this is basically a nature of the share one needs to understand before proceeding further and before understanding the types of the share capital in detail. So what is share? The definition is share means a share in the share capital of the company. So it is a part of the share capital which is divided into equal denominations and which is defined with specific distinctive numbers under the as per the Companies Act. So what is the nature of the share, or you can say the features of the shares? A share is the right to a specified amount of the share capital of the company. So when I am a shareholder of the company, I will have to hold certain particular number of shares. Then only I will become the shareholder of the company. So basically a shareholder becomes the owner in the company. So if I am holding, let's assume that 10 equity shares, then I may be the owner for particular proportion of that particular proportion in the total shareholding of the company. Now I may be holding, let's assume that 0.0001% of the shares, but still I will be called as owner. It carries certain rights and liabilities. So shares always carry certain rights and liabilities. We should not forget it. So what kind of rights and liabilities? It depends on the type of the share capital, whether you are having the equity shares, you are having the differential voting right shares, or the preference shares. A share is the right to participate in the profits of the company. So very important why one should invest in the company form of business as a shareholders, because he is interested in getting, the shareholder is interested in getting something in return, that is return on investment, and that profit is normally called as dividend. So dividend can be distributed when there is a profit in the company and which is distributed to the shareholders. Share is a movable property As per section 44 of the Indian Companies Act 2013, share is considered as a movable property transferable in the manner provided by AOA of the company. So AOA will define how the shares should be transferred, but normally if the physical shares are there, then you will have to transfer according to the share certificates. The procedures are there. We'll talk about that. If demat form shares are there, Depositories Act will be the regulating act for that matter. A share is considered as goods, very important. So share is considered as goods. So where the goods definition is defined, it is defined under Sale of Goods Act. So under Sale of Goods Act, definition of goods is given like this. Goods means every kind of movable property other than actionable claims and money, and includes, the word includes is mentioned, and includes stock and shares, growing crops, grass, or things attached to or forming part of the land which has agreed to be severed before sale or under the contract of sale. So such type of definition is given under the Sale of Goods Act, which defines goods, and it includes the word shares. So shares has been defined as goods in India, which is movable goods. Every share shall be distinguished by its distinctive number. So every share should be identified properly, and that is the reason the share should be defined and the distinctive number should be given. I would like to give you an example how the shares are defined in various distinctive numbers. So let's assume that there is an example we can take. ABC Private Limited has issued, let's assume that 1 lakh equity shares, 1 lakh equity shares, and there are, let's assume that there are 3 shareholders, A, B, C. Now A is holding 50%, B is holding 30%, and C is holding 20%. Now how shares will be divided into them? So 50% means 50,000 of equity shares. So if I say equity shares, over here I can give, and this is my percentage of holding. Then here 30,000 equity shares, and here 20,000 equity shares. What is mean by distinctive number? What is mean by distinctive numbers? So here shares will be divided into each distinctive number. So my distinctive number will start 1 to, for example, that, let me use the other color, 1 to 50,000. So here my distinctive number would be 50,000, 1 to 80,000, and here my distinctive number would be 80,000, 1 to 1 lakh. So see how the shares have been divided into the distinctive number. So now further, in future, if suppose C wants to transfer the shares to D, let's assume that C is transferring the shares to D in future. Let's assume that it is ready to transfer the 10,000 equity shares. So D will become the shareholder, and then distinctive number will change, because here the shareholding will be reduced. It will be reduced to 10,000, and then distinctive numbers will be 10,000, 1 to 90,000, and then here the distinctive numbers will be 90,000, 1 to 1 lakh. So these are called as distinctive numbers, which are given with the records company will have to maintain from time to time. So every transfer of shares can be traced properly. It is not like that a company can issue more than that or company can issue less than that. Every transfer of shares can be calculated or traced properly because of this pattern. I hope you understand the distinctive numbers, how it can be calculated. Now let's talk about the types of share capital. Now we are moving on to the very important topic. types of share capital, where exactly it is defined. So types of share capital basically are divided into two categories. Oh, I made a mistake. Yeah. First one is equity share capital. And second one is preference share capital. Preference share capital. Okay, so these are the two categories which are defined. What is mean by equity share capital and preference share capital? So where exactly it is defined? Under section 43. Under section 43. So basically, we says that equity share capital. So which is the share capital? The definition is very simple, which is not a preference share capital. So the definition of the equity share capital is given like this. Equity share capital is considered as which is not a preference share capital. It is that share capital which is not preference share capital. Okay, so one needs to understand the preference share capital in order to understand the equity share capital. So it means that part of share capital with a preferential right. So what does it get? It gets preferential rights. It gets preferential rights. In which particular terms it gets preferential rights? In two different ways. So it gets preferential rights in payment of dividends, in payment of dividend, and second preferential right, okay, it gets in the event, let's say company goes for the winding up, in repayment of the capital. You can say repayment of capital. Repayment of capital. So these are the two important rights which the preference shareholders can enjoy. Either he may get payment of dividend. In the preferential rights means the shareholder will get preference over the equity share capital shareholder in terms of when the payment of dividend is to be paid, and repayment of capital when a company is going for the winding up. So let's try to understand first the preference share capital, and then we can move on to the equity share capital and the difference between the equity and the preference share capital. So what are the various types of, question can be asked in the exam, like types of preference share capital. Types of preference share capital. So it is divided into 4 different parts we can study. So first one is cumulative and non-cumulative. Cumulative and non-cumulative. Second one is convertible and non-convertible. Convertible and non-convertible. Third category is participating and non-participating. Fourth category is redeemable and non-redeemable. And non-redeemable. Okay, so these are some of the categories of the types of preference shares. So what is cumulative? So dividends are basically accumulated and therefore can be paid before anything, okay, which is paid to the equity shareholders. So cumulative shareholders will give the preference over the, okay, equity shareholder always. So let's assume that if a company is not able to pay the dividend because of the loss or because of the no profit is there, company is not able to pay. So if he is a cumulative preference shareholders, his rights will be carried forward in the next financial year. So non-cumulative, company does not pay dividend in the current year, the claim of the preference shareholder can be lost in the next year, next succeeding year. So basically in cumulative, the rights are carry forward to the next year. In non-cumulative, rights cannot be carried forward in the next year for the preference shareholders. In case of convertible, so convertibility is the option given to the preference shareholders. So convertible shares possess an option or right whereby they can be converted into ordinarily equity shares at some agreed terms and conditions. Okay, so convertibility is the option given to the preference shareholders. Now the convertibility can be into different parts: full convertibility, partial convertibility, non-convertibility. So what is non-convertibility? Where the option cannot be given. Now how it depends that one should go for the preference shares or the equity shares. So preference shares are advisable when a person is interested in getting the fixed kind of dividend, fixed rate of dividend, or fixed dividend for that matter, fixed percentage of dividend. So dividends can be paid in 2 different ways: in fixed rate of dividend or fixed percentage of dividend. So when a preference shareholders is interested in convertibility of the shares in future, so when preference shareholder thinks that, okay, my shares should be converted into the equity form of shares, so convertibility option is better. But non-convertibility, the preference shareholders will not get right to convert its securities, its shares, into the equity shares. Participating and non-participating. Now participating preference shares has an additional benefit, you can say. So which particular shares we have completed? So see, there are total 8 categories of the preference shares. Participating preference shares has an additional benefit. What kind of additional benefit? They get additional benefit to participate in the surplus profit or surplus assets of the company from the preferential dividend. Okay, so basically they get a surplus, they get an additional right to participate in the surplus profit as well. So even after getting the their entitled rate of dividend, okay, they can participate in the surplus profit along with the equity shareholders. Non-participating preference shares are those which are not entitled to participate in the surplus profit or surplus assets of the company. Okay, so they are only entitled for the fixed rate of dividend or fixed percentage of dividend, as the case may be, which has been agreed upon. So participating and non-participating. What is meant by redeemable? Redemption is one of the very important right for the preference shareholders, because when a shareholder is purchasing the preference shares, he should get a right to redeem it further. Okay, so redeemable preference shares has a maturity date on which the company shall repay the capital amount to the preference shareholders. Now the paying back of the capital called redemption. So when a company is going to pay back the money to the shareholder, it is called as redemption. So as per section 55, okay, which says that preference shares shall be redeemed within a period of not exceeding 20 years. So there is a maximum period mentioned, okay, for the redemption purpose. So what can be the maximum redemption period? Maximum it can be 20 years. Okay, and it is for 20 years for all the cases, but if the company is into the infrastructure business, infrastructure companies, okay, so companies into infrastructure, in that case, okay, redemption can be maximum 30 years, but after every after 21st year, every year 10% of the shares should be redeemed. So these are the provisions given under the Companies Act for redemption of the shares. Now irredeemable preference shares do not have any kind of maturity period, non-redeemable, okay, and it are repayable only at the time of winding up of the company. But for your kind information, now as per Companies Act, no companies, okay, now this particular provision has been taken away from the Companies Act 2013. Earlier in the Eastwhile Companies Act 1956, this particular provision was applicable, where redemption, the issuance of the non-redeemable shares were allowed, but now, okay, it is not allowed due to the Companies Act section 55. So no company can issue irredeemable preference shares. That you need to understand. So these are the types of the preference share capital. Let's try to understand the types of the equity share capital. Types of equity share capital. So basically equity share capital they enjoy all the rights. Okay, so they can enjoy all the rights. So there can be two categories. Equal voting rights. So I think now you understood what is the concept of equity share capital. If you understand the preference share capital very well, then you can make out, okay, what is equity share capital. So which is not a preference share capital. That's it. So equity share capital get equal voting rights in one part and or differential voting rights. Okay, differential voting rights. So which are the rights attached to the equity shareholder? Right to get, right to vote, right to receive dividend, right to transfer freely without any restrictions. Okay, so these are, okay, some of the rights which are the common rights which are available, okay, to the equity shareholders. So one can just make out over here common rights. I can just put over here common rights which are available. So the first common right is right to vote. Second is right to receive dividend. But let me tell you, when we'll study the difference between equity and the preference shares, you will understand the right to receive dividend is not as a right. It depends upon a company to declare dividend or not, or right to transfer shares. Okay. So basically, there are two categories of the equity shares, where shareholders get the equal voting rights and shareholders may get the differential voting rights. It depends upon the type of the equity shares. Now this is also called as DVR, sorry. This is also called as DVR, differential voting rights in the short form. Okay. So what is mean by that? So when I say right to vote, when it is the equal voting rights, when it is not a differential voting rights, in that particular case, all the shareholders in the company will be given one share is equivalent to one vote. One share equivalent to one vote. So here it is possible that the right can be given one share is equal to one vote. That is possible. But here, if there are differential voting rights are given, and if company decides that we will give the differential voting rights. For example, if I hold one share to 10, then one share will be equivalent to 10 votes. Now you will be surprised to know why such type of differential voting rights are required. So here in India, basically, there are companies where the promoters, they want the funding, but at the same time, they do not want that their voting rights should be diluted. Okay, so even if they hold a less shares in the company, they want to keep that particular hold in the decision making. Now the investors, what is the benefit for the investors? So investors may be interested in the just investing money in the company, not beyond that. Investor may not be interested in the transfer in the voting rights. In that case, investors will definitely come and invest in such type of companies. But as per SEBI guidelines, the new SEBI guidelines relating to the DVR, that is differential voting rights, there are some restrictions now put after on the promoters, like when the company goes for the listing and after 5 years down the line, all the DVR rights will be over. Like such restrictions have been recently put by the SEBI on the DVRs. So DVRs, it's basically safeguarding the interest of the promoters in order to take the decision. So it can be differential voting rights, or it can be fractional voting rights, in the sense that if I hold 10 shares, I may get only one vote. Okay, so in that way also the voting rights can be defined under these particular provisions. So I hope you understood these particular provisions very well. What are the types of equity shares, how the equal voting rights and all these things will happen. Just make a note of all these points. So we started from here. The shares means a share in the share capital of the company. Nature of share. Share is a movable property. It is goods distinguished in the distinctive number. I have given you one of the example over here. Then we started with types of share capital. It is divided into two categories: equity share capital, preference share capital. So equity share capital is basically which is not a preference share capital. Preferential rights, payment of dividend and payment of capital, two rights will be given. Types of preference share capital: cumulative, non-cumulative, convertible, non-convertible, participating, non-participating, redeemable, non-redeemable. As I told you, redeemable can be for maximum 20 years. For infrastructure, okay, it is maximum 30 years. Types of equity shares we have studied: equal voting rights, differential voting rights. So what are the rights? Common rights: right to vote, right to receive dividend, right to transfer of shares. I hope you understood these provisions very well. Okay, from exam point of view, this topic is important. So today we have completed various topics. Let me quickly revise what topics we have completed. We have started with the capital. Then we started with the nature of the share capital, various types of the nature of share capital we have studied with the example, and then we moved on to the share capital core concept. What is share capital, how the division is made. So in the next lecture again we'll try to understand the important points of differences between the equity shares and the preference shares, and we'll move on further with the other parts of the share capital. So that's it from my end today. Thank you so much for watching this particular video. Do watch this video, read the notes. Till then, goodbye.